Hi, I'm Jeff Ray, the Prototographer for Steeped in Light Photography. And if you own the Removu K1 4K stabilized video recorder unit, the next few minutes of this video are made for you. If you've ever had a question about how you might provide more protection for your unit both when it's being stored and while it's in use, if you've been a little bit concerned about perhaps scratching that little integral 1.5-inch screen that comes with your unit, and most importantly, if you've ever wanted to find a way to add a filter to your unit, I've got some information for you I think you're going to enjoy. Stay with me, I'll be right back after the break. Welcome back. I've had my Removu K1 unit for approximately 4 days now and really enjoyed the potential this unit's been able to give me out in the field in the limited amount of testing I've been able to do. But while I've had the unit, I've discovered several things that I've enjoyed in other stabilizer units that I wanted to incorporate into this unit before version 2 hits the market. Hopefully that'll be relatively soon, but I know the company is very excited about getting the first version into more photographers and videographers' hands. The three things I noticed that I really wanted to improve or to add to the unit immediately were primarily to have a better case than the one that comes with it, so I can provide better protection for the unit both while in use and also during transport to my destinations I'm going to be using it for. Number two, I wanted an ability to be able to protect the acrylic screen cover that is integral to the unit for the 1.5-inch color LCD screen. And number three, and most importantly for me, I wanted and needed to be able to add filters to my unit. Fortunately, I found a way to be able to do all three of those things in a simple and, more importantly, inexpensive way that gives me what I like, and I think you'll enjoy it as well. As always, I welcome your comments down below, but let's get right to it because it's going to take a few minutes to go into this and I want to jump right into it. So, take it away! All right, I'd like to welcome you guys back for an exciting introduction here to Season 2 of the Prototographer and some of the things that I've been working on. And I really was debating how I'd begin this first episode because of the new season, because I really wanted to be able to bring something to the table that would be interesting, that would be novel, and that would be something that would be really applicable. And with the speed with which technology moves these days, it was pretty obvious to me that the area of video has been explosive over the last couple of months, particularly, and really over the last year, in terms of its ability to bring 4K video to the hearts and hands of thousands of really anxious videographers everywhere. And at the same time, we're looking at a real revolution in the way these products are essentially rolling out and what they're able to offer to us. As recently as a year ago, this great product here from DJI, the DJI Osmo, which I have here, and this is the original Osmo, of course. The Osmo Plus came out afterwards. But this has really been one of the go-to standards for a small, lightweight, stabilized 4K video recorder. And it is a very well-built, very well-engineered product. DJI is known for doing a really nice job with their fit and finish on both their drone line as well as their 4K video recorders. And this, of course, is an actual direct outcropping from, and as an outcome from, the development of the Mavic Pro. So these were actually developed in tandem at the time. And it's a terrific product. I've loved using it. It works very, very well. I have the full complement of filters for it, the polar filters for it as well. I have the ND16, in fact, on here right now. And the thing I've enjoyed about it, of course, is that it's freed me from having to carry my big Sony rigs with me, which I love as well, when I'm traveling, particularly to destinations where it's just not as convenient to travel with either a crop sensor or a full-body camera that you then have to have a rather large stabilizer in order to produce good video quality when you're on the move. So this has been a terrific solution for that. But even with that having been said, this particular product has a couple of limitations. Number one, because it communicates with the required cell phone that you have to use with it, or other device, either Android or iOS, it has a certain range limitation as to what you can work with there. While that's not been a particularly big issue, the secondary issue is you're required to have that. It has to hang off of this mount on the side. It adds weight to the entire product. It makes it a little less capable to be used in tight, confined spaces. And in some cases, it makes it a little more difficult to get really great quality stabilized images. But it works really, really well overall, and I've been really pleased with it. However, as with all things in technology, time marches on. And a few months ago, there was a product that was introduced as a direct competitor for this at a price point that's actually lower than DJI's product prices, and kind of an exciting outcropping of some of the projects that have been out there that have been sort of crowdfunded. This is the Removu And this is the model K1, which has a complete stabilization system built in. You guys are very familiar with it. I am not going to do a video on comparing these two products. There are many of them out there. Please feel free to look. I'll include links to those in the comment section down below, but they're out there and they do a great job. What I'm going to do tonight is something that's not been done before. In the final analysis, this has been a really, really exciting product for me to get my hands on. I waited for it, as many of you all did, and I received it about 3 days ago. And this is actually the very tail end of August of 2018, so I know many of you have had it in your hands for many months. But I've just gotten a hold of it, and the first thing I did, being the prototographer that I am, is to see if I couldn't tweak it to make it do some things that the manufacturer themselves have indicated they will probably do in the future, but have not yet done. So I want to go over some of that with you right now. So let's clear the table metaphorically and actually get all of these goodies out of the way, and I'm going to show you what I've been up to. What I'm going to show you right now are some modifications that I've made and some adaptations I've made to this exciting hardware to give us the ability to become a little bit more field worthy, where you can be travel a little bit lighter, and in many cases do a little bit better job with our video. At the same time, I wanted to be able to protect the gear a little bit better, because there are certain things that I wish that I had been able to find on the product as it shipped that just simply aren't there quite yet. I suspect when they come up with version 2 of this that they'll address a lot of that, but in the meantime, I still want us to have the very best product we can for in the field. So without further ado, let me center this a little bit better here in your field of view, and let me introduce to you, drumroll please, the new and slightly improved Removu K1 with its modifications. Let me show you a little bit of what I've done here, and as you can see, obviously, first and foremost, I have a case here that was originally designed, as you guys can obviously tell, for the DJI Osmo. And many other folks have modified their cases like this. So again, that's not really the big reveal that I'm going to show you, but I do want to show what I've done to make this particular case work very, very well for you. And I'm going to foreshadow a little bit here by telling you that every one of these modifications that I've made that you'll see in this kit are available, and you can do them yourselves for in less than about an hour to an hour and 20 minutes for all the work you'll need to do, and for under $100. In fact, when I ran my calculations on all this, $82.48, and that's buying it at retail. And the beautiful part of it is it's all available online, so that you don't actually have to even go into a brick and mortar if you don't choose to. So without further ado, let me jump right in here and show you guys what I've come up with. The first thing you're going to see, obviously, in the center, and it is in the center for a variety of reasons, is the Removu device itself. And I've really enjoyed using this. It works really, really well. It compares very favorably to what I have obviously had a chance to play with on the Osmo. And because it's lighter and has that really beautiful 1.5-inch integrated screen in full color that gives me what I need without having to hang a cell phone off of it, it works really, really well. Now, if you look closely, you're going to see it doesn't maybe look exactly like the one you own, and I'm going to start to hold it in relief so you can see why. And I think that will absolutely tell the whole tale. I'll stop right there. What I have done in order to protect it, because I was very concerned about the soft acrylic plastic surface scratching, particularly when you get this thing out in the field and you're doing some fairly active recording, what I've done is to actually incorporate a screen protector. Well, you might be saying to yourself, well, that's interesting. How did you find something that would work as it should for this? First of all, you have to deal with the fact that there isn't an official product yet released from Removu or any of the other third-party manufacturers out there yet for this product. It's just simply too new, and it has the added complexity of a slightly curved bezel surface. And I may be able to show that to you here in relief. You can actually see the curvature across this, which means that a perfectly flat screen protector is not going to lie down very well or stay attached very well either. My solution was to first of all conquer the 1.5-inch screen size, and I did so by cleverly doing a little bit of math on my calculator and finding out that the Apple screen protectors that are out there for the Apple iWatch in the 42mm size are very inexpensive and very readily available. They will stick very well to a flat surface. They do not stick worth a flip to the curved surface of the Removu. Trust me, I tried. So what did I do? Well, I actually was able to integrate into the unit itself, and you can see it right around the edges here, the bevel, a 1.5mm cut section of a very, very good sticky product made by a company called Gorilla. You might be familiar with some of the Gorilla glue, and they make a Gorilla tape, which I've used for a variety of projects. It sticks really, really well. It doesn't come apart the way some of the older foam double-sided tapes do, and it really is inexpensive. An entire roll like this, which I purchased again online of that same material, runs under $6 and it'll last you for a variety of projects. By very careful trimming, which took me about 30 minutes, I was able to mount that on the front of this using that glass surface. And I'm able to see beautifully what I need on the screen, and it is now thoroughly protected. It has the added benefit, if Removu ever makes it a touch screen, these pieces of material will actually sit close enough that you can actually command it by touch. Obviously, that doesn't exist on our current units, so not a big issue there. But that's probably the most difficult thing I had to do to the unit, was to incorporate this screen protector. But I really felt uncomfortable leaving it as an exposed acrylic surface, because all of us know that when we're out and about, as careful as we may be with these products, they're going to be subject to dings and scratches. And I really didn't want to scratch up my brand new product, so I did that. The other thing I found in storing this unit in the original soft side case that comes with it, as compact as it is, it doesn't provide a lot of protection. The gimbals are somewhat lockable in at least two of the orientations, but one axis is not protected at all. And what I mean by that is, you'll notice that when you go to lock your Removu unit, it can lock very nicely in the fully reversed position so that you face the screen and it faces forward, as you would normally do for shooting in the field. It also will lock, for those of you who need to do that, at 180 degrees opposite that position. So it locks really, really well in both of those positions, but only in those positions. When you go to store it in a rigid case, you do need to be able to mount it on the side. And when you do that, the other thing that you need to be concerned about is the fact that while you can definitely lock it in this fashion right here, and you can hear that, what you will notice next is a very complex design I came up with. 40-pound stock paper is a perfect fit to provide the remaining third axis with enough stiction to actually allow it to remain in a fairly locked position without in any way putting any kind of stress or strain on the actual axis drive itself, the motor drive itself. So when I store it in the case, I use these pieces of paper. And in a little while, I'm going to actually tell you the other use that this paper performs for me, in addition to simply keeping the gimbal a bit more stable when I go to mount it in the case. So you'll notice that first and foremost. And I really like what that's done for me, because it allows me to store it in a way that's secure, it doesn't move, and I can actually bang this case around quite a bit and not cause any injury at all or any damage in any way to the unit itself. Now, because I am out in the field for a while with these things and I've been shooting to see just how much of a kind of a torture test I can give it, I need more than one battery. As good as these batteries are, and you do get a long lifespan out of this, probably the single most remarkable thing about the way they've engineered this is that they've allowed it to be a very energy efficient unit so that you can get several hours of recording out of a single battery, as you see here. That is not possible with the previous Osmo incarnations. Those, I would get anywhere from 27 to 29 minutes typically out of a battery and have to charge it. With these batteries, I can get several hours, but even with that in the field, it's really nice to have a spare battery. Well, the nice thing about this case is it allows me to do so. So the next thing I did was I actually modified the existing case design to allow, and I think you guys can see that here, an additional notch, and this has simply been cut with the use of a box cutting knife, which you can see right here that I used, and then I removed it very carefully, the pieces I cut out, using a small screwdriver. So really very simple, and again, no complex tools required. This modification of the case, all the modifications I'll show you here required no more than about an hour to do total. So I actually have the ability to place two separate batteries. So I really have the capacity to handle 3 batteries, which is more than enough for several days worth of shooting out in the field. But I've got a way to extend that even further. What I've done, however, instead is to use the remaining battery compartment as a way to store additional filters. Here you can see these. I have another circular polarizing filter, and I'm going to talk about that in a minute. And I have the ability to place additional pieces of the paper used to secure that third axis on the gimbal. And you'll note that what I've done, in addition to actually having the ability to secure the gimbal, it also has the ability for me to record, if I can get it to do that for me, there we go. I can get that to show up a little bit better right there. The date, and I use the date, the job, and the date that I transferred, that is an abbreviation there I use for that, the video from the SD card in the unit to the computer, or in this case my iPad, when I go to do my video editing. So this allows me, by putting it here, to have a little bit of the old string around the finger technique of allowing me to know for sure that I have safely transferred that video, so that I don't worry that I'm writing over the card accidentally, unintentionally, and it allows me to secure the gimbal. So the paper does that for me there as well. So that's something else that I added, which I think you'll find useful if you do that for yourself. I know it's worked really well for me over the last few days. So I have my spare battery, I have my lens protection cover, I have my gimbal secured right here, and now I want to address the issue that's the big 800-pound gorilla in the room. One of the limitations that we run into with all of the lower cost stabilized gimbal units, whether they're mounted on a drone or whether they're mounted on a hand stabilizer, is they have a fixed aperture. In this case, almost all of them are an f2.8 aperture, which is terrific for low light, but quite frankly, it just doesn't work when you go outside on a nice sunny day by the beach. Since you cannot adjust the aperture, you are limited to either adjusting shutter speed, which has its own ramifications, or being able to lower the ISO, but only to a certain floor, and that has certain ramifications. The solution and the workaround that we've all learned to know and love is the use of neutral density filters. And while we have those available for the, which I have hiding down below my Osmo down there, to date there are no official filters for the Removu unit. Well, as of tonight, I'm going to show you how you can add an inexpensive set of filters to this unit and do with it what you would like when you go out into bright lighting. It also, by the way, tends to take care of some of the weird color shift you guys have reported in some of your videos that require you to do additional color grading in post. So this is a way to actually kill two birds with one stone. And what I did in order to determine that was to take off the existing, and I'm going to do this on camera so you can see it, I'm going to remove my CPL filter I have right here, which is of course my circular polarizer, and I'm going to show you right here the front-facing UV filter that comes with your Removu unit. Now, I have not yet checked with the company to find out if this would void any warranties, but I can't imagine that it would, because the unit is still sealed. It is still very well protected, with the exception of the fact that if you look very closely here, and I'll try to hold this at the right angle, you will see right here that in relief, the front element of that lens does extend beyond the face of the profile of the actual gimbal that it's mounted in. So it's important that anything you add to this be something that first of all can protect that front surface, and second of all doesn't mar it in and of itself. So when you have the actual unit mounted on here that comes with your Removu, and these actually remove quite easily. It is not a difficult thing. I actually was removing this by hand. There are tools that they use at the factory to insert it, hence the reason for these little notches on the front. But you can actually remove it by hand. It's not difficult to do. And once it's been removed, it exposes that surface, which is also multi-coated, as you can see the reflection, that kind of greenish color there from the vacuum surface, vacuum coating on the front of that. So while this is a very good UV protective filter, it really doesn't do anything to help us protect ourselves from light. The neat part of it is once you've removed it, you will note that there are very small threads right in this area right here, and the beautiful part of that is it's exactly 30 millimeters. And it is close enough in thread positioning per millimeter to allow the use of a standard 30 millimeter filter designed for other camera use. The really great part about this is these are available. They're available online, they're inexpensive, and they do the job. But here's the challenge. That is a male set of threads. The common way we would mount a filter on a lens of a camera would be with the back surface of it right here, and I'm going to see if I can bring that into focus for you there so you can see it, which of course are also male threads. Well, now you're male thread to male thread, that's clearly not going to work. And what's worse about that is it puts the back surface of that filter, in many cases, right up against the surface, the front surface of that lens, which is a big no-no. You don't want to do that. But here's the beautiful part of it. You just simply turn it around. You think a little bit out of the box or away from the threads of the lens. When you do that, and you'll note that I'm having to kind of bend my hand here a little bit because it is a circular polarizer. And the advantage to that, of course, is it allows me to not only reduce light uniformly, but it also allows me to use it to essentially eliminate reflections off of the horizontal or vertical surfaces depending on how I orient it. But because it's a more complex filter, it actually has two sets of rings, one of which is movable. You actually have to exercise a little more effort to put it on, and you can see how easily it went on. It's a little over a rotation or a little bit less, and it's very securely attached. When I do that, I'll go ahead and activate it to show you that it actually doesn't create a problem. And of course, it's going to give me a fault because I'm in safety mode here. I did not unlock my gimbal. So let me go ahead and turn that off. That also proves the system does work. I have updated this to the latest firmware as well. And let's go ahead and unlock everything here. And you will now note that with everything unlocked and freely moving, when I go back to reboot it, it will now boot properly. Okay. And I have mine set to automatically begin recording as soon as I start it up. What I'm doing right here is simply to demonstrate to you that the unit works as it should and does everything it should do in terms of moving the unit back and forth, up and down. You can see I've got good freedom of movement here all the way across. There's no exertion beyond the normal movement of the gimbal, and it works flawlessly. And you'll see as I move the unit back and forth, it stabilizes exactly as it should. So there you go. There's a CPL filter in place. I also have for it down below here, and you can't really see it very well, so I'll try to get out of the way so I can get this to autofocus for you there. Yeah, now you can see it. I have a neutral density right here. This is my ND2 filter. I have actually an FLD filter, which is used in fluorescent lighting to provide better color balance. So I have a UV filter in case I just want to protect it, in case the original filter over here ever gets lost or misplaced. And I have another circular polarizer. That does actually bring me to my next point, which is there is even a neutral density, variable neutral density filter available on the market. Unfortunately, it has to come in from China. There's no one that I found domestically that carries it in the United States. I have that on order, and as soon as it comes in, I will be thoroughly testing that and producing a video to show you guys the output to make sure we don't run any of those funky kinds of artifacts that you sometimes see with the neutral density, variable neutral density filters. So, with the risk of running too long on this video, and I apologize for that length, I do want you guys to be aware that this is doable. Now, there are a couple of other considerations you have, and I'm going to go ahead and power this down while you guys are watching it. There are a couple of other concerns that you do have and considerations when you go to put something together like this. Number one is obviously the weight on the front. Unlike the DJI, which has the ability to handle fairly heavy filters, even though we use lightweight ones on it, the manufacturer did not build in a large additional capacity to handle that weight on the front. There are really two concerns. One is weight, and the other is, of course, vignetting. Because this is an extremely wide-angle lens on the front, if you go to a stacked filter, for instance, 2 CPL filters, or a neutral density and a CPL, which I've used, you will have some limited vignetting. The further that stack goes from the actual rear surface of the filter to the front surface of the lens, the further away that is, the greater, of course, the vignetting effect. So what I've found for myself is that if I use a single filter like this, or if I stack 2 filters that are very thin, as I have here, I'm able to do that quite nicely. And I have limited or no vignetting whatsoever. And so that works really, really well, particularly if you like that wide angle effect that this does such a beautiful job on. The second consideration that I just touched on is the weight factor. And what I did to determine this, the safe range of this so that I would not in any way strain the gimbal motors on this, is to have taken a scale. And I have a kitchen scale that's actually calibrated in ounces and in grams as well right here. And I'll power that up so you guys can see how it's operational. And I placed a variety of different filters on the gimbal until I was able to exceed by a gram the safe operating range. And believe me, I didn't do that for very long, a few seconds at most, simply long enough to know that the unit was having to strain against the additional weight. By doing that, I've determined empirically that if you limit this to 13.5 grams of total weight additional, the gimbal doesn't even know it's there. I suspect the original specifications called for this to be able to handle up to 15 grams safely, and it might. But none of my lens filter combinations would allow me to get to precisely 15 millimeters. So the closest 15 millimeters, 15 grams. But in any event, in working with that, the heaviest I was able to safely accommodate on this was 13.5 grams. So I would recommend you stay with that. And the good news is all the manufacturers of these filters do include the net weight of the filter in the descriptions that I've been able to find. So you'll know immediately what you're using. And I will also publish an updated list from time to time that I'll add to this video that will allow you to find out a little bit more about what's available on the market, and I'll include links to that. I'm not promoting any particular manufacturer's products. I'm not, as I've said any number of times, I am not endorsed by anyone, nor do I want to be endorsed by anyone, because I want to be able to give you my honest appraisal of how this is working for me as a working photographer and now a working videographer using this gear. So essentially what I've done here in a nutshell is to provide the custom case. You'll also see the micro SD cards. I keep 3 with me at any time, anywhere from 64 to 128 gigabyte in size. I have one more thing I need to cover here, in addition to the filters I've already covered, and of course the spare battery, which is what I've done with this remaining compartment. In the original design, this is designed to handle the charger for the DJI Osmo. But in our use, we have a nice case opening here that allows us to include either a standard battery charger, and these are very inexpensive, available on Amazon for under $10 now. They simply contain one single Li-ion cell in there and a 5-volt out on the top. This fits in beautifully if that will fit your needs. It does a beautiful job, and I have, of course, the USB cable here, the micro USB cable with it. But I have an actual additional need and I have a product I've had for quite a while, which is available from Hutu, which does the same job of providing external power through the USB port here. But it does a couple of other things I like really well. Number one, and you can even see it here, the Ethernet port, it has the ability to actually act as a Wi-Fi hotspot. And if you have a hard connection through Ethernet, you can actually connect this up to an existing network, and that allows you to be able to use Wi-Fi to do whatever you need done. And with the addition of an inexpensive $3 or $4 reader in that same USB slot that you would use for your external charging, and yes, it will charge one of these completely, which is really nice. This Hutu will actually charge 2 of these batteries if you give it enough time, which requires about 12 hours, so it does take time. These are slow charging. They're terrific batteries, but because they use that standard micro USB port on the back, they take hours to charge. But it will do that, and in the field, if you need additional power beyond what the 2 batteries or 3 batteries will provide for you, this will do that in the pinch. But it will also allow me to hook up a reader and broadcast over Wi-Fi, secured, WPA secured. It will allow me to send that then to an iPad or a nearby laptop for editing. That's really powerful. I'm basically able to move on the go with all of this, and this right here is still selling for around $38, $39. So the entire kit, everything I have included here, including the extra filters, many of which are duplicates, including all of the whistles and bells I've added to it, set me back a grand total of $147.86. That is worth repeating, $147.86. So for under $150, you actually have a kit that will allow you to go out in the field, everything but the Removu unit itself, and of course that doesn't include the spare battery. I will let you know, spare battery is additional. But it allows you to go out in the field with a complete kit that's very handy, very easy to carry. It zips up into a small space. It's very light in weight, and it travels with you wherever you go. So I've been really pleased with what this gives me for right now. Obviously, we're still waiting for Removu to come out with the officially sanctioned filters and so forth, but in the meantime, this is a great way to go. Guys, if you have any questions on this, I would love to entertain them. I hope this is going to be some interest to you guys. I know it's been a real boon to me. I'm excited about what this is going to let me do when I'm out in the field, my behind-the-scenes videos, when I'm doing my still work with my models, that type of thing. The ability to capture some of the video that I can use this on a pole with now. I'm getting ready, and I will leak a little bit of a hint here to you guys as well. I have a special piece of equipment on order that solves the one issue that folks have noted with this stabilizer in using it beyond the need for a neutral density filter, and that is having to do the old fancy crab walk. We used to call it the Osmo walk, in order to avoid that up and down motion when you're walking or running. I have a product that is coming in. I worked with someone on this over the last few weeks, and when this product comes in, I'm going to be attaching it to this as well to solve that issue. It is also inexpensive, so that's kind of exciting as well, and I'm going to try to make space for it in a kit similar to this, if not this kit. So all these things are coming down the pike. You'll also probably be able to note, although I didn't really point it out, that I keep my iPhone in here as well, and this is very nicely padded. This particular case from Smatry or Smatry, I'm not sure how that's pronounced. This is actually not just mesh. It looks like a mesh here, but it's actually a padded mesh. So it keeps my iPhone, and if I were to put additional cables in here, I'd have a space for that as well. So it's very spacious. It works well. The entire case weighs a little over a pound. So it's very light in weight, and it gets me where I need to go. So guys, that's pretty much it. I'm going to put a link down below to all the products and their prices. I think you'll be rather impressed with what this is able to do for you, and I'd love to see comments and to hear how this has helped you with your video, if indeed it has. And if you have any other comments at all, please leave them down below in the comments section. Thanks again for being so patient through this over 20 minutes worth of video. I promise the next one's going to be a lot shorter, but I wanted to go over this in some detail so you guys can do this yourselves. I will also be publishing on my website, I'll have a link to it, the step-by-step directions on how I modified the case, along with some still photos of how that was done, so that if you guys want to do this yourselves, you can, and I'll be excited to share that with you as well. Guys, I really appreciate it. Thanks so much, and stay tuned for our next video, which will be coming up here in just a little over a week. So take care again. Once again, this is Jeff Ray, the Prototographer for Steeped in Light Photography. And remember, it's not what you take, it's what you make. So remember to always make it matter and make it yours. Until next time, guys, great shooting.